Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
The reason why I chose it is like twofold. It's like reminiscent and it's just nice to watch. In essence, it's a love story with gratuitous car chases, lots of guns, the Cuban army, morgues, dead bodies, high-speed chases, gory bits, swears and jokes.
I don't remember it being as absurd. I wrote the word absurd about 45 times throughout the however long it was that it lasted for.
Hey everyone, joining Flixwatcher today, we have Vic.
Hi, I'm Vic.
We have Charles.
Hi.
And Kobe.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about Bad Boys 2.
Thank you as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes that you can hear right now. And thanks always to Ben from Rockwood Audio for editing this podcast. Please do remember, guys, if you are on Spotify or Apple or Pocket Cast now, go over and give us a 5-star rating and a glowing review there. And if you want to join the conversation with us, do so on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod, or you can go to Blue Sky, we're there. TikTok, we're there also. Threads, we're there, but also mainly Instagram. All those places are simply at Flixwatcher.
Hello film fans, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher Podcast. Our guests today are Vic and Charles. Over to you please, Charles. Say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, I'm Charles Commins. I am a freelance podcast producer, voiceover artist and presenter. My company is called Vibrant Sound Media. And I also host the award-winning It's All Cobblers to Me podcast, all for fans of Northampton Town, and co-run the fabulous Mike's Podcast Club, which is a community for podcasters with my good friend Vic.
Is that you?
That's me, yeah. Oh, fancy that. Fancy that. Fancy seeing you here. Bloody hell. Hi, I'm Vic. I'm the boss of Mike Media.
Just the boss,
That's
generally.
Right. I feel that thumb coming right down on my head right now. Yes, okay.
Mike is a podcast production and training agency, and we specialise in working with good eggs, so the people that are doing good in the world and making the world a little bit better for us all to live in. And I co-run Mike's Podcast Club with my pal Charles, who is here tonight. Would you believe it?
Hiya.
Yay!
It's one big love in.
Love fest.
So we are here to talk about Bad Boys 2, the film you've chosen, Vic. Can you tell us, first of all, why you chose it? And then I'll get the timer out, in which you'll have 60 seconds to give us the synopsis.
So I want to just level with you before we start. I'm not a film person, and I'm not a film buff. Like, I rarely settle down to watch a good film. The last time I went to the cinema was to see Barbie.
I mean, that was a long time ago, but not the longest.
Really? Not the longest?
I don't think my wife's been for 2 years, maybe.
Blimey. Oof. And it also takes me ages to watch a film. If I'm watching a film at home, it takes me a long time because I'm either pausing it, going to get a snack, pausing it, filling my wine up, pausing it, go on IMDb, and then I get into a wormhole and I'm like, who are they married to? What were they in? What do their kids look like now? Is anyone dead? So it takes me, for a 90-minute film, it takes me about 4 hours to watch. So
yikes.
It's just a rigmarole in this house to watch a film, so I rarely watch films. But for this one, it came out in 2003. I was 19, and it's the only, apart from Titanic, it's the only film I've ever seen twice at the pictures.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it was on a date. I saw it when I was 19.
Both dates? Both were dates?
No, I don't know I can't remember whether the first one was a date or the second one was a date. Do you imagine it's the same thing?
Are you still together?
No, we're not, no. Okay. And then it brought back loads of memories watching this film because I remember we went to a nightclub afterwards And the nightclub in Manchester had free drinks for girls all night.
What nightclub was this?
I think it was called Elemental.
I mean, any nightclub in the noughties sounds like that, doesn't it, really?
Free drink.
It's a Tesco Extra. How big was this
Sorry,
nightclub?
not a Tesco Extra. It's Tesco Metro. Tesco Metro now. So, yeah, it brought back lots of memories of me being 19 and in 2003 when I just started university in Manchester. And so I don't really like action films. But I like this because it's silly. It's a bit daft. It's gratuitous gunfights and car chases. And I've got a soft spot for Will Smith.
Even now.
I just thought he had a bad day. After, the whole Chris Rock thing. he had a bad day. And it's not in a sexual way. Like, I don't want to hump Will Smith. But I just feel like if I went round to his house, like for a weekend, he'd be dead lovely. He'd cook me some nice tea. We could have some nice drinks. We could take ages watching a film together. It'd be lovely. I'd love to do that. So the reason why I chose it is like twofold. It's like reminiscent and it's just nice to watch.
Fair enough. Can you remember the synopsis? You've got 60 seconds.
Right, okay. Let me just... Right, okay. I've prepared this, And
the timer starts now.
It's 8 years after the first film. Mike, played by Will Smith, and Marcus, played by Martin Lawrence, are back in action as police detectives based in Miami. This time, they're on the trail of a drug cartel that's flooding the city with ecstasy. The cartel's kingpin, Johnny Tapia, he's a ruthless villain who's trying to protect his empire and has some mummy issues. So along the way, we have a romance. Mike's falling in love with Marcus's younger sister called Sid, but it gets quite complicated because she's got a dangerous job. And throughout, Marcus is on the verge of a breakdown. He'd probably get signed off if it was today. In essence, it's a love story with gratuitous car chases, lots of guns, the Cuban army, morgues, dead bodies, high-speed chasers, gory bits, swears, and jokes.
14 seconds left. So, where are you with the rest of Bad Boys films?
I can't remember. So I've seen the first one, but I can't remember it. I trapped myself How old am I? I trapped myself to watching the third one. And I got really excited that the fourth one was out this year, but I've not had a chance to see it yet. So,
oh, you haven't seen it?
No, not seen it yet. No.
Okay. Because when invited on the podcast, I'd assumed you'd seen the most recent one, and you're like, let's watch this one in retrospect to compare and contrast. Interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those films that I don't know about you. Like, a lot of my pals can watch films over and over again. Like, it's their comfort thing. They can watch a film over and over again. I've only got a handful. I've got like Anchorman, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Grease, and Dirty Dancing.
Why is he laughing? Why is Charles laughing?
Basically, because it's pretty much the same list as mine.
And Willy Wonka.
Oh no, I'm not a fan.
I like to think I'm cultured, but they're my list of films I go back to. I'm really highbrow.
So Charles, then tell us about you. What are your thoughts on the Bad Boys, this film in particular, but Bad Boys in general? I remember watching the first two when they initially came out over 20 years ago and more. And I don't remember it being as absurd. I wrote the word absurd about 45 times throughout the however long it was that it lasted for. I mean, it's funny, but in the way that it would have been hilarious back when it came out. Yeah.
But now that times have changed, it was, oh yeah, okay, that's funny. At a lot of points. There were points where I did still laugh out loud. In particular, when Marcus told Sid, his sister, that he was going, well, he said, "I'm telling mummy." That made me laugh. I just felt like there was so much death in a ridiculous way and so much carnage in a ridiculous way.
Yeah.
And I also found myself going, I am really old now, because all I'm watching here is the millions of pounds that it's going to take to re-put everything back together in Miami. And considering I'm a huge fan of the Marvel films, and I never once thought about that when all sorts of different places are getting destroyed by the Avengers as they fight off the ridiculous evil that they're facing. On this, I literally just kept going, yeah, there's another £1 million or dollars gone down the drain. That bridge, that's going to need rebuilding. I can't believe this. I mean, it was good fun to an extent, but I also kept finding myself sort of just going, oh, wow, maybe this is dated a bit now for, when it is.
There was a few bits like that.
There were a few bits. I did enjoy the beginning after we'd gone through the parts where they're basically just showing the drugs coming in on the ship, and there wasn't much going on in that. It was a really slow setup, although I will say not as slow as the setup to the original Star Trek motion picture, which takes about 75 minutes to even have one word of dialogue in it. But with that, I did think, okay, we're now going, and you get to the white supremacist meeting. And it's been so long since I watched it, I had forgotten that Will Smith and Marcus Lawrence had gone undercover in their characters as being white supremacists. And when they did their big reveal, there was a part of me that did just go, oh yeah, could they still do that now? And there was an awful lot of bits where I did find myself cringing with a little bit of sniggering at how bad it was in a strange, funny way. The fact that the backup couldn't see them because there was fire.
Yeah.
And things like, I just kept thinking to myself, come on. I don't believe that would be the case. You're supposed to be the best of the best here. Come on.
Helen.
But yeah, it was fun to watch.
Helen, what are your thoughts?
So maybe regular listeners of this podcast might not be surprised to learn that this was my first introduction to the Bad Boys franchise, of which I discovered only today that there are actually 4.
What do you mean only today? What happened? What's been going on?
I looked on Google. I thought there was like 3, and I was like, "There's 4!" Like, oh god. So yeah, and I've never intentionally watched a Martin Lawrence film before, so this was also a new concept for me, and I'm a little bit baffled by the Bad Boys concepts. If like on paper, I like Bayhem, like I like the explosions, I like the over the top Bayhemness, and it's kind of gritty and it's about drugs and things. But is it meant to be a comedy? I didn't get the comedy and the action. I didn't quite get that, and I don't know. I didn't buy their chemistry. I think they're good friends in real life, but I wasn't quite sure they were entirely getting on when they were doing it. They seemed irritated with each other, which might be their characters, because I've not gone on the journey with them. So that was a little bit strange. I was also very confused when Michael Shannon was there. I was like, why are you in this? But
well, he's a jobbing actor at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I forgot that it was so long ago, and it was like 2 hours of them being extremely incompetent, and then it just ended. I was like, what? Like, it completely finished. And yeah, I don't think it has aged that well. It's some of the homophobia was kind of like sticking out a little bit. So, but we kind of mark Joey Pants with hair or without hair, and this is Joey Pants with hair. So yeah, I didn't see it at the time, which I think maybe having seen it at the time gives it a bit of a different experience, or having seen any of the other Bad Boys films would have kind of made a bit more sense to me.
So I think I didn't see this in the cinema, but I think I got it on DVD. I was working in France when this came out on DVD, and I got my mum to ship it to us. And the people I was living with, I think we watched it like quite a few times. And so that I would have been 23, and this would have been the perfect age for absorbing the nonsense. And also, 20 years ago. Plus, I really, really love Bad Boys 1. I think that's still, for me, I haven't watched it for a while, but for me, that's still the best one in the franchise. This, after that kind of time away from watching it, I just kept thinking back to this film and thinking, I don't want to watch this now. It seems too long. And then I remember like scenes from it thinking, no, that's a nonsense scene now. So this has been like 20 years since I watched it. And a lot of those things a lot of those reasons came to the front when I was watching it. Like the bodies flying out the back of the car, out the back of the van. I was like, nah, that's dumb. Like even though the rats having sex. I mean, that's quite funny.
That was just not right.
The way he said they have sex like us, that so things like that. The things that made me laugh, but then like the playing out the homophobia bit in the video store, where everyone thought they were talking about themselves as a partner and stuff like that, and that being played for laughs. I'm sure I would have laughed my ass off at that, but now I'm like, guys, we can just do better than this. We can do better. It's too long. I think absurd is a lot of what you're saying. I think that absurd is the right word. But I don't know. It must be absurd, but underpinned by something that just doesn't make sense, because I'm quite happy watching some of the Fast and Furious films. The other one, the latter ones are absurd, but like the middle ones are like pure absurd, but they pull you in and there's something about them. But here I'm like, no, it just doesn't quite gel. So, but in spite of that, I generally kind of like, yeah, I disagree with Helen in that I really like I do like the chemistry, and this one and the second one, and this one and the first one, I think their chemistry is really, really good and tight, and they do bounce off each other. The last ones, it loses me because I don't think the chemistry is as good, although I think the films are made a bit better than this. So it is about, yeah, chemistry for me. Will Smith. What's interesting here is that Will Smith, so Martin Lawrence is higher billing than Will Smith, which is interesting. That he was the bigger star then. Clearly that isn't transpired now, and is not the case now. But yeah, I liked it. I knew going in, pressing play, I think I wouldn't like it as much as I did do when I was 23, and that is the case still. And it was 20 years ago, and yeah, it hasn't aged well. Like the dead woman naked in the morgue is just like.
No, that was.
That's not. You don't play that for laughs.
I've made some notes, and I've been really organised, and I've categorised my notes, and one of them is problematic, and I've got anything problematic. Dead woman with big boobs, problematic. Laughing at the bonny daughter, problematic. And the other one is Megan Fox is in it, right?
Hold on.
Megan Fox is right at the beginning. She's in the disco scene where they're all writhing around, and. She's got all like she's looking sexual, dripping with loads of water. She was in 10th grade.
Oh, so it's like.
Oh, I think I remember this now.
She was 15 years old when they cast her in that. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. So my brain works in weird ways, and I think, well, if we were having this conversation in 2003, how long ago was 21 years ago? And it was like 1982. So it's like us then watching a 1982 film. So there'd be even more problematic things in the 1982 film. What I found interesting with it as well was it doesn't feel like 2003 is a long time ago, but if you look at what they were doing, there were no mobile phones. Like they weren't going, oh well, I'll call you. There was no mobile phones. They were hacking landlines. You don't think about. They were getting the little digital camera. There was pull out. He was showing his boss how to use a digital camera. It was quite a bit of a retro.
Quite quaint, wasn't it? Like, to be honest, it didn't feel like it was a 20-year-old film, and I think that's just because like the effects and the filming is so tight and so smart. It might be completely like absurd, but there was a lot of money spent on this to make it look like it did. So it doesn't look hokey. It doesn't look like a 20-year-old film.
I'm sorry, just in my notes I've made, I've referenced Martin Lawrence as Martin Lewis throughout.
Money saved expert.
Yeah, just giving like tips on getting the best broadband deal whilst firing his guns.
They are two different people.
Simone.
To be fair, that feels like it would have fit and would have actually have got a laugh. I did think that going back to what you said before, Kobe, about some of the scenes just being a bit almost random. Like the thing that I found, I'd kind of forgotten that it happens in this one, but there's the scene, I wrote it down and said it was the iconic scene. I think it's because it's been turned into a meme of late, which is where Reggie, the young boy, comes to take out Marcus's daughter, and then Marcus obviously plays overprotective dad and questions him like he's a drug suspect. And then Mike comes out waving his gun around, pretending that he's just got out of prison and that he's the black sheep of the family and isn't very good. And I'm going to completely have you if you do anything to my niece, as he calls and refers to her as. I kind of was like that going, I remember that being really funny when I first saw it and being like, yeah, hilarious, brilliant. And I watched it and I almost saw it through Reggie's eyes, which wasn't fear of these two older guys. It was more embarrassment. And I just thought, oh, you can stop now. This is a bit awkward. And I didn't really understand why it was there in the film. I just, it felt like it was just there for the comedy value of that chemistry between the two main actors. And I didn't really understand what the point of it was, because you don't get to know what happens at the end. You know, did he bring her back on time? What actually was the point of having it? I just...
No, it was, I completely agree. I mean, apart from the fact I still found it quite funny. But it's like something out of the sketch show, the Fast Show or League of Gentlemen, where it's kind of a loosely kind of thematically built into the story, but also if it wasn't there, it made zero difference to the storyline. It was just a case of the writer saying, hey, I've got a funny bit and you guys are quite funny together. You guys here's the sketch we've written, drop it in here when you guys are at the house and pretend that there's boyfriend's coming around for the first time. And also with that, like the scene in the video store where they're talking and everyone hears them and thinks that they're a gay couple and Will Smith's being a knobhead about it. And you're like, oh, was this whole set about him getting shot in the arse so that can lead to this bit, which then is a non sequitur, really. And when you think the film's like 2.5 hours and you kind of like, a lot of this stuff could be removed and still be the film, you know? So, and a lot of it, yeah, like you said, absurd. Like I know it's a film, but the amount of times they're just running in, shooting bullets all over the place and then not getting a scratch on them, apart from when it's Martin Lawrence getting shot in the ass. It's like, no, you don't do that. You don't run into a place with guns blazing. And
how no civilians got killed? There was, fire everywhere on the streets of Miami. They went through, at one point you went, sidewalk, and they didn't squish anyone. How did that squish anyone? Amazing. Far-fetched, I'd say.
Absurd.
I did think, though, that because nowadays I think everything is almost needs to be so accurate. You know, things like the fact that nowadays you wouldn't see somebody fire a gun at that angle where they're holding it sideways unless it was done as a kind of, no, you don't fire a gun that way, you're an idiot, and pointing out the absurdity of that. You know, you don't have the accuracy in that movie, and maybe it makes it more fun because you know that it's not right and it's not going to really have ever happened like this. There was so much carnage all the time. The scene where they're in, I think, they're in a Haitian household.
Who's in my house? The devil.
Yeah. And I was like,
not welcome here.
This is just absolutely ridiculous that you've just got you've got Marcus and Mike on one side of the wall, and then was it 4, maybe 5 guys that were on the other side, and they're basically just fighting each other, just setting their guns off. And I just thought, and yet somehow 2 beats 4 or 5 in the most ridiculous way. For me, it helped that it made it easy to watch because I wasn't thinking, oh, would that happen that way? Because it wouldn't happen that way any of this movie in the slightest.
See, I love the gratuitousness of it. Do you know what? Bad Boys 2 is a hill I'm going to die on.
Like I say, I'm happy with gunfire and gunplay, and that scene in particular, that, who's in my house, the devil, that's a line we used to laugh at and recreate and talk about with our friends. But it was like, my brain kind of jumped out of my head and went, "This is dumb," and went back in my head again. The way he kind of stands up, and the Michael Bay camera swans round him.
Oh, I love that.
It's just there. And you're like, no, you're gonna die. If this is what you do every day, of your life, you're gonna die quite soon. So no, don't do that. But also, it's quite funny in places.
It is. Did you think that Captain Howard was kind of meant to be the viewer, us, inside the film? Because it's like he can't believe how shit Mike and Marcus actually are and how much damage that they do without getting any kind of results. And he's constantly like that. And I did keep going, that is us. He's playing the audience.
I was thinking just suspend them. Just stop them from doing their job because they're not very good at it and they cause a lot of trouble. And I'm sure there's
he's having a breakdown, isn't he, him? He's having a bloody breakdown. He'd be signed off. He'd be on sick him. And we obviously in 2003, we talk a lot about mental health issues, but he's not right. Get him a better therapist, for one. Get him someone to talk to.
Yeah.
I think it's just perpetuating his mental health problems. It's not a good film.
Can we also talk about the fact that he doesn't learn from his mistakes?
Who's he?
Marcus.
Right.
Still doesn't learn from it. Still ties his dog up connected to the swimming pool, even after the first time.
That's how you know it's a comedy, because it all goes back to the start.
Yes.
There you go.
Anything you guys want to say before we head to the scores?
Michael Bay cameo.
Yes.
Oh, was there?
Yes, he's in it.
Isn't he always in these things? He's in the last two, even though he didn't direct them.
Oh, I mean, he's not always in all of his films, but he's definitely in this.
Which bit is he in?
He's the driver of one of the cars they hijack. He's like wearing a silly
and he says
hat.
Weirdos.
Yeah.
I went on the Wikipedia page for Bad Boy 2. And can I share with you some of the reviews?
On the Wikipedia?
Yeah, so they share, there's a section called Reception, isn't there, where they share some of the reviews. So what this is from Real Views. Bad Boys 2 isn't just bad. It's a catastrophic violation of every aspect of cinema that I, as a film critic, hold dear. Scathing. I love that. Is the worst review I've ever read. And then Rotten Tomatoes, 2.5 hours of explosions and witless banter.
Did I write this? No, I didn't.
Still love it.
Should we head to the scores?
Let's do it. Scores on the doors.
Hello, I'm Martin.
I'm Sam.
And every week we get together on our podcast Song by Song to discuss the music of Tom Waits.
Waits is a writer, musician and performer. You might know him from his 4 decades of songs like What's He Building in There, Downtown Train, Martha, Rain Dogs.
Or you might have seen him in films like Dracula, The Fisher King, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, or, if you made it that far, Licorice Pizza.
We're joined every week by guests from various backgrounds and disciplines, and together we take a close listen to his work, analysing the topics and tones he uses in his music, and honestly engaging with one of the most interesting voices of his generation.
Listen to our latest season or dive into our back catalogue by visiting songbysongpodcast.com or search for Song by Song in your podcatcher of choice.
So welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. They are always out of 5. You can have decimal places if you wish. And we will start with you, please, Vic, with your recommendability.
My recommendability for Bad Boys 2 is 5.
Wow.
What are you even asking me for, eh? It's fun. It's silly. It's gratuitous. If you don't look too deep into it nowadays, it's a lovely watch. I didn't realise it was 2.5 hours, because I always forget when I watch it that they badge that Cuba end on at the end, that Cuba bit on the end, and you're like, oh, it's done. No, we're going to go to Cuba. There's another hour. We're going to Cuba. It's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. Fun nonsense. It's got Will Smith in it, so I'm going to give it a 5.
Charles.
I basically asked myself the question, would I recommend my mum and dad watch this film? My dad is 80. Mum's a little bit younger, without giving her age away. And I came to the conclusion that no, I wouldn't. I just thought to myself, if I recommended it to them, that my mum would give me that disapproving look that I know so well, and my dad would just kind of go, "Oh, there he is," and walk out the room immediately. I would give it a 3. I couldn't recommend it to my mum and dad, but if you want a good waste of a 2.5 hours with something on that might make you laugh at absurdness on occasion, then go for it. Maybe do stop before Cuba, though. That was long enough for me.
Helen?
I kind of feel that all the people who I could recommend this to and they'd enjoy it have already seen it. I must say, I'm going to give it a 3 as well. It's complete trash, but as you've shown, Vic, there is a lot of love for it, even with its, what was your section called? Problematic. Even with the problematic section. And I think that if you've seen it when it came out, then you're probably going to have a little bit of a nostalgic love for it. And also, if you've seen the other ones and you've not seen this, I mean, watch it. But it hasn't made me go, I really need to watch the other 3, which I wasn't aware there were 3 in existence until I was like,
I can't believe that.
Well, I thought there was 3. I thought the one that came out last year was that one, but they did one.
When you say last year, you mean this? You mean
this
last
year?
year? You mean this year? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was the one, but there was 2. So yeah.
So 3 was your recommendation. I think this is still my second favorite Bad Boys film, and I think other people really like them. I think the newer ones have been done better, but I think the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence doesn't, for me, sing as much as it does in the first one and then this one. And I will forgive a film if I like the chemistry between the people in it and what they're doing, and that as a driving force, even though the nonsense around it kind of makes no sense. And I think that's a lot of what happens in the latter Fast and Furious films, where you can tell that no one really likes each other. And then on top of that, there's nonsense, and you're kind of like, why am I doing this to myself? So because I like a good banter between people, 3.5. Repeat viewing score. Vic?
I'm going to give it a 4 because I probably won't watch it again. Well, twice in the cinema, a couple of times on the medium screen. I probably won't watch it again for another 10 years.
10?
I mean, I say watch it again. Probably, maybe 7, maybe. It's fresh in
specific.
I've got really crap memory, so I'll forget about it in 7 years.
Yeah.
I'm like a elephant. Elephants forget in 7 years. Have I mixed my
Elephants never forget.
Elephants never forget.
Yeah. Goldfish forget in 3 seconds. So maybe somewhere between that is...
I'm in between a goldfish and an elephant on the scale of forgetfulness. But I will watch it again. I do really enjoy it.
So that was a 4, was it? Charles?
I don't think that I would return to it again now. I have seen it at least 3 times before, because I've got a feeling, I know what I used to always do was, and I still do it on occasion, when there's a franchise, I will always go back and watch at least the one before it, the newer one comes out, as a reminder, a refresher. So I think
previously on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For 2.5 hours. I therefore kind of feel like now, I think I was probably done with Bad Boys 2 before I watched it on this occasion. So having now watched it again, I don't think I would do so in the future, mainly because there are a lot of films out there that I am yet to watch at all, and other ones that I have seen that I would definitely watch again over watching this. So I will be very, very harsh and give it a 2.
Oh, wow. I thought it was going to be even lower than that. Helen?
If this was a 90-minute film, you know what? Maybe I would watch it again. But it's 2 hours, 36 minutes. And it's the setup is the same in that they go in to kind of like do the undercover thing.
Yeah.
And they fuck it up and they just keep doing it over and over again. And like one of those like moments is kind of like the set piece would be really entertaining. But by like the third, fourth one, I'm a bit like, come on, guys, get to it. So yeah, it just, there's like a 90-minute action film that's really slick and really like in there somewhere, but it's not. So I'm going to give it a 1 for repeat. I'm never going to watch this again. Sorry.
Who are you apologising to?
Vic, who saw it twice at the cinema. You know what? I've never seen Titanic. So the 2 films you've seen at the cinema, I've never seen Titanic, and until the other day, I've never seen this.
I haven't seen it from start to finish all the way through.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness, Helen, you're the only person I've ever met that's not seen it.
It's on Netflix. Like, I'm expecting someone will pick it
Yes.
very soon.
We'll come back and we'll just pick
Netflix.
that for you.
And I'll go, it's 4, I don't know how long it is. It's long though, isn't it? I think that's what's put me off. It's that.
I think it's
I
the
know
Celine
how it
Dion.
ends.
Yeah, you know how it ends. It's the. Well, let's talk Titanic.
It'd take me half a day to watch it, wouldn't it?
I will see this again. I don't know when. I'm sure there's going to be a Bad Boys 5, and that might reignite me. I think I'll probably start at Bad Boys 1 though, go to 2, maybe then skip to 5. But I'm sure I'll watch it again, but not like I won't wake up thinking, yes, today I'm going to watch Bad Boys 2 again.
7 years.
7 years, 7 year itch. So I'm going to give it 2.5. Small screen score, Vic. You've seen it on the big screen a couple of times.
Can you remind me the scale?
So a film that you love and have to see in the cinema, or think should only be seen in the cinema, is a low score. A film that you think is like, this is perfect for watching at home. And in fact, had you seen it in cinema, you'd be quite pissed off that you'd spend your time and extra money to go and watch the film. Is a high score.
So the small screen's a high score. It is, isn't it? So I give it a 2, because I think you can only get the full-blown experience of seeing all that gratuitous car chases and bullets, and it's quite gory in scenes. Like, you do see like blood spattering, don't you? So I think the full effect of the gratuitousness and goriness can only be felt at the cinema. So yeah, a 2 for me, please.
Charles.
I mean, I've got a very, very large TV that I watched on. Obviously, it's not as big.
Someone's doing well for themselves.
Well, you know, some of us just get to splurge. Obviously, it's not as big as a cinema screen, but I thought that was interesting, by the way, because I actually thought it was going to be gorier than it was. I have seen far more gore in lesser films, let's just sort of say. And I don't know whether that's a Michael Bay thing where he's got a limit or what that was, but I was expecting more from it. I've gone slap down the middle for this because I think you can watch it in the cinema and it would be good, or on, you know, the small screen, the TV. So I've gone with 2.5.
Helen.
Remember in those days, though, like when it came out on video or it came out on DVD in 2004, maybe like a year, 6-9 months later, we only had those like box TVs, didn't we? Like the big back on them. With very few people had those the screens we have now, like an LED flat screen thing. So the only place you could probably get the full effect was the cinema back in those days. How old are we? Back in those days.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely watching on a 14-inch portable quote unquote TV. Which with a VHS built in. I can't remember. But I was like, when I saw that combo, it's got the video built in, Dad.
Love mine. I only got rid of mine in 2016.
Helen.
Michael Bay is not a person that makes a film and goes, you could watch this on your TV. That's that's my vision. Like, his films are like, you have to be in the cinema and your ears are going to bleed and your eyes are going to feel like they've been repeatedly stabbed with all the explosions and things that I've got. So if I'd have seen it in the cinema, I thought of watching it in the cinema for this long. You'd be in there for like 3 hours with trailers. It would just be quite hard. But I feel as though I probably would I would have at least watched it and not spent a lot of it on my phone. So there's that. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5. I think obviously if you've seen it before, you're gonna enjoy watching it at home, but there's just too much going on. Like those explosions need the big screen.
So 3.5, is that? Yeah, I think I quite enjoyed watching in the cinema. If I did a rewatch, I'd probably try and get down to Prince Charles and watch it maybe ahead of the Bad Boys 5, which is Bad Boys Alive. Why not? Bad Boys 5 Alive. Guys, this is the title.
Pitch now.
So I think it'd be good to watch it in the cinema. I think you'd have just the fun of other people vibing off it as well, more than anything. So I'm going to go with Helen, 3.5. Engagement score, Vic.
Now, given my record of watching films and how easy it is for me to switch off and go and get a brew or some fruit, I would probably give it, this is difficult engagement score because I'm quite disengaged most of the time. So I'd probably give it a 3.5. So we make podcasts for a living, me and Charles. And I think there's two types of podcast listener, and I think there's two types of film listener. The first type of podcast listener is they'll go through their podcast app and they'll search for a podcast episode that's the length that they've got the spare time for. So I've got 20 minutes spare, I'll listen to a 20-minute podcast. Or I'm the other type where I don't even look at the length and I'll stop it and pick it back up again at another time. So I've done my commute and I'll pick it back up again. I'm the same with films. I don't look at the length because I'm like, well, I can just stop it and have a brew, or I'll come back to it the day after, or I'll sleep on it and I'll come back to it. So if I step outside my little complicated brain and step inside someone else's brain, that's really hard to do. Maybe.
Sorry, that's really hard to do.
I think there's enough like bang, 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 fast action stuff to keep you. I give it, 3. That's my short answer to
How many
question.
snacks did you have how many times did you get up for a snack?
I went to get some fruit. And then I went to get a drink and I got a hot drink. I think I got up about 6 times.
So that's probably about a 3 then, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Charles?
I thought that there were at least 3 points where I could have gone, that'll do for now, and turn off, and have been satisfied with leaving it at that point. Felt satisfied that I'd watched enough and enjoyed enough, got enough out of it to be able to turn it off. I must admit, I was also playing with my Scalextrics, not a euphemism, while I was watching this film. And I enjoyed the fact that at one of the moments where a car blew up, my Scalextrics car flew off the track to the other side of the room. And therefore I was watching 2 cars simultaneously explode, or at least in my mind, both of them were. I found it engaging enough. I would give it a 4.
Helen?
It's pretty high, saying Scalextric was cracking off at the same time.
You don't need to watch the Scalextrics. You just get it in the right place in the trigger and it will just go round. I must have got to a point where either I was belly laughing, which wasn't that often, but could have happened, or was shocked by what was going on and how bad they were and squeezed a bit too hard.
Helen?
Talking about Scalextric. I had to watch this in 2 because it's so bloody long. It was like, I've got to go to bed. I can't stay watching this anymore. So that doesn't bode well. There's like bits where it should, because there's so much going on and it's so loud, it's so in your face, and it's so, what the fuck is going to happen next? It should be entertaining, but it just didn't. I just didn't stick with it. So realistically, a 2.5, I think, for engagement.
I'm going to go for 3.2 here. I think my engagement was higher because I was kind of waiting. I was kind of like, okay, when's that next bit happening? And in my memory, the Cuba bit where they were driving through the houses was like quite early on. So I was like, oh shit, what's happened here? And I misremembered it as they went to Haiti, which kind of makes less sense and more sense at the same time, because can Americans go to Cuba? But So I was kind of just hanging off like, oh, when's that thing going to happen? When's that thing going to happen? Oh, I don't remember that happening. And so I think in future editions, future rewatches, my engagement will be less. So what does that mean? I'm changing my mind as I'm talking. 3.2. And that gives an overall score of, 3.01250. Probably about right. Vic, Charles, can you tell everyone, remind everyone where we can find you guys online, and we'll say goodbye to the listeners.
Thanks so much for having us on. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate the time you've taken to hear me wang on about my nostalgic 2003 Bad Boys 2 film. You can find out more about Mike Media by just Googling Mike Media or going on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and searching MIC Media. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. It's been really, really good fun. This bit especially, the 2.5 hours of watching, maybe not quite as much fun, but fun all the same. You can find me mostly on Instagram at Charles Commins. You can find Vibrant Sound Media at vibrantsoundmedia.com. And please come and join our podcast community if you're a podcaster. We've got a meetup page, meetup.com/MicPod, MICPOD.
Lovely. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure to rewatch, and it's been a pleasure to speak to you guys as well.
Bad boys, bad boys. Da, 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 da. What you gonna do when they come?
You can't sing that. We haven't copyrighted it. This copyright. We don't have the release fees to spend on that.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes and Rockwood Audio's editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.